Jesus' first miracle. By the way, I think our presiding bishop is one who says this is proof that Jesus was an Episcopalian, because the most important thing at the wedding was that the wine did not run out. So he and his mother and his friends are at this wedding party, and the wine does run out. And what does Jesus tell them to do? To fill these huge 20 or 30 gallons. You know, a gallon is about like this. And these big containers of water. Fill them up with water. And then he tells them, go take it to the wine steward. That's the person who tastes to make sure that it's all good. And what happens when he tastes the water that had been poured in? It was wine. And in fact, he said it was the best wine. It was a good year. So, so this is considered Jesus' first miracle. Although the gospel doesn't call it a miracle, it calls it a sign of who Jesus was. But let's talk about miracles for a minute. How would you define a miracle? It's hard, right? Something that somebody else couldn't do because it's really hard. How else would you define a miracle? Something really good that happens to you. Yeah, something that happens out of nowhere. These are all good definitions. Any other definitions of a miracle out there?
Can't be explained.
Out of the ordinary. Sometimes people consider miracles something that goes against the laws of nature, right? Because ordinarily water doesn't become wine. And sometimes people see miracles as opposed to science. Because you think about it, science explains to us how everything happens and does a really good job of that and knows the reasons. And sometimes if people don't think it can be explained, they just say it's a miracle. But lots of times scientists say, wait a minute, we'll tell you why it happened. But the interesting thing about that is one of the most famous scientists that ever lived, one of the most brilliant minds that we have known in the modern world, was a man named, anybody want to guess? Albert Einstein, she said. Exactly. Did you say that? You said it. Albert Einstein. I heard it right here. Yes, brilliant mind. He understood the whole workings of the universe, how it came into being. And he said something once, it's a wonderful quote. And it's very interesting coming from a scientist. He said, there are only two ways to live your life. Either as if nothing were a miracle, or as if everything were a miracle. And I think that's really interesting coming from a scientist, and I think I know where he got that from, because I just finished reading a book by another great mind of our age, Stephen Hawking, The Brief History of Time, and he knows everything that Albert Einstein didn't know. But one of the things is, even though science can explain everything, how the universe began, how it will probably end, no one knows why. Why did anything happen? Why was there a Big Bang? They know how, but they don't know why. And so I think that was what Albert Einstein was saying, is that we are surrounded, and like Joe said, we often think of miracles as extraordinary, but we are surrounded by things we might call ordinary, but they're miracles. This weekend our country celebrates the prophetic voice of Martin Luther King Jr. And when you think about it, his life was miraculous. Because here's an African-American Baptist preacher living in a time when African-Americans had very few and far between rights. And he's not only able to empower and give voice to his people, but he's able to prick the conscience to make white America realize that something wasn't right and to see change begin. And so his life in itself is a miracle. And then I think if you told Dr. King back in the 60s that within 50 years this nation would have an African-American president, I think he would have thought that was a miracle. So it may be things that are ordinary, that we're used to seeing, but nevertheless, it's got a wonder of why. Why did he feel compelled to change the course of our history? Why did people feel compelled to listen to him? What are some other miracles? What are some miracles you see every day? People being kind to one another, helping and not even thinking about their own well-being. You know, every now and then you'll read in the paper someone just risked their life to help somebody. Why? How about some other things? Anybody out there? How about in nature? Helping a plant if it's dying. Yes, why do we really care? But how about even the plant itself? We put this little seed, this little tiny thing in the ground, and then out it comes with water and blossoms. Pretty miraculous, don't you think? How about the birth of a child or any being? I think that's just a miracle. The birth of a colt or a puppy or a person.
To somebody who lived over 100 years ago, the idea that we could get to Europe within 6 or 8 hours.
Right, flight. Flight. The fact that the bumblebee can fly. Scientists will tell you that's a miracle. So there are these ordinary miracles that surround us on every side. And this gospel today reminds us not only of pointing the sign to who Jesus was, but to pointing to us to open our eyes and see all the miracles that surround us every day. And in fact, we celebrate a miracle every week when we gather, right? This service. So let us continue now with this service where we take ordinary bread and wine, and by praying as a community over them, we experience Christ's real presence with us. That is an amazing miracle. Ordinary, but miraculous. So, let's keep our eyes open for all the miracles around us. Amen.
Amen.